Hi there. Oh, hi there. No one. I guess no one's here yet. I must have opened up a bit early. Or maybe no one's coming tonight. Let's wait and see. I have to talk or the recording thinks that there's no class going. So I'm talking while I wait for some students to show up. Oh, there they are. Right when my hands are busy. Okay. Hello. Hi there. How's it going?
Hi.
Hi there. I can hear you. I can see you. Let's move this over. So, hi Yoni. Hey Joanna.
Joanna.
Eleanor. Let's move this over here. I can see here. So, who's ready to start with Excel? Yay. Some people find it's like the best thing ever. But no matter how much you do or don't like it, it is one of the most useful applications that that we have. Truly, you're going to use it for so much that no matter how much you think you might not need it, you truly will need it. And it's the kind of skills that even if I'm just talking about the way some more people to show up, but it's just it's the kind of skills that no matter that you don't use Excel, maybe with some other time you use Google Sheets or Mac, the Apple numbers. It's once you learn it here, you can apply it everywhere, you know, because the way that we use up here on VDI, all the assignments, the way that we use a spreadsheet is the same for everything. The technique, the theory behind using a spreadsheet for numbers is the same one used by all of those programs. So, all right. So usually people show up a little bit within the first 10 minutes. So I have an air filter behind me. So it's hard. Can somebody say something again? I think I heard you at one point. Can you just say something? Make sure I'm hearing you well.
Hi.
There you go. Okay. I just needed to raise the sound a little bit better. We have, yeah, I know that many of you guys are not in Santa Barbara, but got a bad fire going on nearby, unfortunately. And the smoke has finally reached us. Yay! Not sure I'm very excited about it, but so we put on an air filter right behind me, but it's competing noise, you know, big white noise. So anyway, hope you're all safe. All right, so how did it go with Word Module 2 with the MLA? It's pretty good. Yoni's like, yeah, went well there. Did you like?
Yeah, it went fine for me.
Did you like formatting stuff in Word? Nope.
No.
You know, Word is one of those things like Excel that we need, but from there to like absolutely loving to use it. I mean, no, you love to use, you know, fun stuff. These things are absolutely just necessary and they're use, you know, they need to know basis, but hopefully you've learned enough that you can, you know, do it in the future. And there's some people in here. Is Ashley. How about you, Joanna? How did it go with module 2? Are you all done? Eleanor?
Yes, I'm all done. I found it a little challenging. The textbook project was more challenging, but then the 1A and the 1B were dirty. Like I had to apply it. I found it easier. I was just making a lot of mistakes on the typing. So when I would get my reports, I would freak out. But it was just like I missed the word. Not really. I wasn't applying things correctly.
It's a little bit hard to understand what you're saying, but I think that what you're saying is that the textbook project was harder than the SAM projects for you. Hi, Ashley.
Yes, but I got them done.
Cool. Well, it makes sense what you're saying, though. The textbook project is, even though it's the one that has all the explanations, is really long, convoluted, and you have to type everything yourself. And that's where you make, not you personally, but you as a global you, that's where we tend to make all the mistakes and typing everything in and making it perfect in every comma, every word, every whatever. That's why the SAMs in a way are easier, because a lot of the text is there and you just need to move things around. But it's important to have both the practice of starting something from scratch and then just practicing doing it with material that's already there. So one thing that's missing in doing it these ways is that A, you do it from scratch, B, you apply it to text that's already there, but that's text that's not formatted and you apply all the formatting. What's missing is the third option, which is when actually you get something already formatted badly from someone and you have to redo all their work or reformat everything. And then you have to deal with bad stuff and delete it and clearing. And that's not practice that you get, but it's very typical to just receive a file from someone and have to make something with it, right? So there's actually a place in Word, you can open it later to show you guys, where you can select the entire document and just eliminate all the formatting that came with it and kind of bring it back to zero. And then you start again, kind of like you did with SAM's. Sometimes though, if you have some of it is good, some of it is bad, then you kind of have to just change formatting it on the fly. But anyway, hopefully you've all had a chance to submit and resubmit and try to, you know, do better. Eleanor, how did it go with you with the MLA?
I was really tired because I wasn't sleeping so well. For me, the textbook, I do better, but then I did get help from Katie, which is really nice.
I was gonna say, because I'm looking at your grades and you are absolutely perfect. So
but like,
was that
I don't know. It's
Katie's
just
help?
I have to do it over and over. Yeah, like I really needed help this time because I had turned in the 1A several times
Mhm.
and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And then I thought I deleted. I thought I put some away and I renamed it, and I thought I lost everything, all my work for 1B.
Oh, no.
And so I just got on the Zoom with Katie, and she just walked me through, found everything, and then maybe you should take a walk, and I'm like, yeah, I probably should. So to wake me up, and then I just got it all done, and I was like, okay, I felt a lot better.
You know, I'm really wanting to congratulate you though, and encourage everyone else to use Katie. This thing is doing what it did that other time. It's doing the. It's never happened before except for that one time, and now here it is happening again. Like someone's mocking me. Okay. Let's do this. I'm going to close down the class. Please sign up again immediately, because the other time, that's the only way we're able to fix it. Oh. Oh, I didn't get repeated. Did someone change their settings there? That's like ghost or something. If it had been happening now, I'd think because it's October, but it did happen last week. Or was it 3 or 4 weeks ago that it happened once? Okay, you guys are hearing me, right? And there's no repeat. I didn't change anything. You didn't change anything. What was that all about? Anyway, no need to sign out then, as long as it stays this way. Good. Well, what I was trying to say is I highly encourage you guys, if you haven't yet visited Katie or Norma, who's in person as a tutor, and you're running into trouble, please, 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 please go ahead and make sure I sent out again the schedule, because instead of battling with it for 3 hours, you can just battle it with her help, maybe for a half an hour. And figure it out. Like Eleanor said, take a little walk and then come back and Zoom, you finish everything. All right. So as you get stuck with things, know that you have help pretty much every day and to get your assignments done. All right. Anything else anyone wants to comment about the MLA before we head over into today's Excel? Nope. All right. So here we go. I was trying to see is usually the people who come to class aren't necessarily the ones who aren't submitting the assignments, but there are quite a few people who haven't submitted this one yet. So I'm looking at, you guys have all submitted, so you're all okay. You're online, it's hard to catch the ones who aren't submitting or aren't coming either, but I was trying to make sure that everyone gets the things on. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and roll through what we need to do for next week, and then we'll run through starting with Excel. Okay, so basically for next week, what we have here is introduction to Excel. For a review for the project, if people had questions of view 5, it seems like you're all done and there's no questions. So we'll just work with Excel today. What's it gonna be due today? Of course, I already checked. I'm so sorry. I already checked and you guys did it. So it's all module 1. And what matters, it was due next week, which is gonna be exactly the same as this week, which is the textbook project for module 1, and then the SAM 1A and SAM 1B. There's a few things that are different in how these files work. So I'm going to show you that in a second. So it's the same amount as homework as you had for this week as you had for last week. So now you kind of have an idea of how to gauge the work, leave a lot more time for module 1, because that's the one that's going to take you the most time, and then the other 2 should be relatively quicker. I have one more thing that I need to ask you to do if you haven't yet done it. When you first sign in to Canvas and you go to the dashboard, and let me actually change my share. When you first go to Canvas, this here pops up for you. You know, the vaccine deadline and the survey. This survey is really important if you guys can take it. It's basically, you're telling us if you prefer to be online or to be in person for spring. Stop my sound for a minute here while my sound comes in. He's still barking. Can you still hear me through the? Oh no, there he goes. It's basically telling my son to pay attention to the dog and pet him so that he stops barking. All right. It always happens around this time. Sorry, guys, but it's when people get home. Okay, so what I was saying about this survey is that it's we are guessing as whether people want to be in person or they want to be online, and the college is assuming most people want to go back in person. In many of my classes, I'm actually hearing otherwise, that a lot of people are really enjoying the online courses. So we really need to hear from students. So that's all this survey is, and it's anonymous, but it's what will you prefer in spring? And maybe there's a variation. There's just questions like that, like for you to kind of get a feeling for how it's been going one way or the other. And if we get any, the more answers we get from you, the easier it is to program things correctly. Okay, and that's where you'll find the link to the survey. Just wanted to show you that. I hit back to, let's hit back to the PowerPoint. All right, so hi, Lo. You weren't here a few minutes ago when I was saying what's due next week. So just backing up a couple to tell you that for next week, we have the textbook project and the 2 SAMs, just like this week. I've noticed that you still have to turn in some of this week's classes, the assignments. So let me know if you're going to need some help with that. Okay. But meanwhile, let me continue with this, and then I'll ask you more. I have another message, which is for VDI users. Who here is on VDI? Yoni, that's it? No one else is using VDI? Eleanor? Oh, okay, actually quite a few of you guys. So when you use VDI, especially in the recording that I made early on, I had told you guys that you can just sign out of VDI using the little bar on the side, and that's kind of how I demoed it. But that's been giving some people some problems. So the other day we had kind of new instructions from the tech support people, and one of those is to actually shut down Windows inside of VDI before you sign out. Okay. So Eleanor wrote about it in the help. So thank you. I'm going to give you some extra credit points for that. For putting all that explanation in there. And then I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So since so many of you guys are on VDI, let me switch to this screen. Okay, so this is my VDI screen now. And I had shown you a while ago that you needed to go to this little tab and then sign out from, log off from your student desktop, and then log out, right? But some people were just closing their tabs and leaving it like that. And so what was happening is that the drives weren't connecting well. So instead of just doing what I showed you, there's one more step is that we are told to do, which is actually go down when you're done with VDI, when you're finished with working with it and you're about to just sign off for it until you come back another day. Actually go all the way down to this little Windows icon right there and actually shut down. Like actually go ahead and shut down. It's only your VDI that's going to shut down, not your computer. And when you shut down, then you'll end up on the screen where you can use this tab and log out of VDI. Okay, so it's 2 steps. It's that extra step before you do that is to shut down. Eleanor had a lot of trouble where her S drive kept disappearing and stuff like that. So I don't know if anyone else reported that problem, but it is a problem that is possible to end up encountering. So just wanted to show you that. Okay, so just shut down before you move on. All right. For what's coming up for Excel, I really want to remind people, I keep seeing in people who've submitted, who first submit their SAM assignments and then do their textbook project. And I highly recommend not to skip the textbook project, to first do that. I've said it before, I'm not sure who was here when I said that before. Just please remember to do that before and then do the SAM assignments. Then the next thing that I want to talk about with you guys is about the SAM assignments versus the Excel programs, projects. And then after that, I'll start playing with Excel. So first is just homework stuff, and then we'll talk about Excel itself. But if you go to your textbook right here, remember that when Excel starts, just one page over, and any of the applications that we do, as soon as you flip over the first page of that chapter of that module, right there, that's the assignment you need to complete. Okay, so right now Excel is the green color. We've kind of jumped over PowerPoint and gone all the way out to Excel. It's the green colors, and this is what you need to turn in, these two sheets. And please keep correcting against this to make sure that it's ready to submit. Before you submit, this is how it needs to look. If it looks anything other than that, then something is probably wrong. Now, some of you already know Excel, some of you don't know Excel. I'll be opening up Excel and telling you all about it right now. But I wanted to say that, as usual, the textbook project, you're going to create it yourself. So you need to download the initial start file from the from the assignment. Let me let Holly come in. Here you go. So you need to start with the start file. Remember to ignore the fact that in the textbook it says create a blank document. You have to keep ignoring that always. You have to start from the SAM file, from the downloaded start file. But after that, you still do it yourself. What you're going to find is that when you download the SAMs, when you download these guys, there's going to be two sheets. Okay, and by that, what I mean is you're going to have one sheet and another sheet. And I'll show you now what sheets are. But the important thing is to know that your name should be automatically here, put in there by Sam. You don't need to touch anything in the documentation sheet. Anything that's here needs to stay there. That's equivalent to in the Word file where it said this Word file in the footer belongs to Yoni Pareda, or Ashley. So don't touch this. It's the second sheet, the budget summary, for example, where you guys are going to be doing your work. Okay, and I'll show you now in Excel what I mean, but just you have to leave alone the information that comes. And then when you do download a report for Excel, what's going to happen is you're going to have another sheet here. And that sheet is going to be the same as in Word. It's going to have the check marks of what works or what doesn't work. And it'll be called graded summary report. So that's how the reports will come for the Excel assignments, okay? As another sheet. And now I'll explain to you guys about these sheets so later you'll understand. So this comes with the assignment just from Sam. This is the report, and this here is where you do your work. All right. How many of you guys have used Excel before? You any? Is that it? Anyone else? Little hands up or thumb, raised hands. Anyone else? If you're not showing your video. Or thumb, raised hands. If you're not showing your video. We're doing it's just, did somebody change anything in the sound? Anything anywhere? The moment that happened, no changes? Because since I asked you for something, maybe you should. No changes? No.
I think it's,
Since I asked you for something, maybe you should.
I've done Excel a little bit, but I don't know if it's me unmuting myself and then it's creating that issue.
Well, yeah, there we go. Now I'm not. Go ahead and unmute yourself and let me see. Unmute yourself. And now.
Okay, I just unmuted myself.
And let me see now if I'm getting. And now
it's doing it.
Yeah.
I'll get out and I'll just re-enter the class and go into my personal link. Okay, because I'm on VDI right now. That's probably what's doing it.
Go ahead and mute yourself. That's okay. So see, this is the thing. Let's do it this way. Don't leave because it'll probably happen again. Just stay on. When you need to speak and unmute yourself, go ahead and speak. And then when I reply, just mute yourself again so that I can do my reply without getting that. That's better than having to leave and come back. Does that make sense? And you can also write in the chat. Yeah, there you go. Write in the chat if something doesn't work. By the way, can y'all go into the chat and say, I'm here? But I'll keep an eye on the chat in case you want to say something. But it's okay if I hear myself suddenly duplicating my words, I'll know to look at you because you're trying to say something because that's why you unmuted yourself. But I'll keep quiet and wait for you to speak. Okay. All right. At least we figured it out. That was so bizarre. I don't know why it's happening, but at least we figured it out. Okay. So I was asking who has used Excel before, and I think Holly raised her hand and Yoni raised her hand, right? So Joanna and Lo and Ashley, have you guys and Eleanor never used Excel before? Lorena, you said yeah. Joanna,
I've used it, but I've never really like learned it proficiently. Just no.
okay. So those of you who have used it, does anyone feel like you've used it quite a bit? Like you're relatively comfortable with it? Kind of?
Not totally comfortable. This is Holly, just enough to get by.
Enough to get by. Okay. A lot of the times people use Excel because in a way that they were at work given a sheet and told exactly what you do. And you do some pretty high level things, but that's it. Like, you know exactly what to do to fill in a certain sheet that was made for you and prepared for you. And you just kind of, things happen and you don't know why, but you know how to fill it in. That's a very typical thing where things that are relatively high level happen for some people. But starting from scratch is a bit more intimidating for some people and they have never done that. Would that happen to be your case, Holly, or have you set up budgets and things from scratch or things from scratch with you?
Yeah, I've done a few things by scratch and done a lot of the like tabs to organize certain projects. And then I've done very little with the graphs, but you know, just, and then I know how to do some of the adding, you know, like say you do an invoice and things like that, just
Okay.
like the equal sum, and that's about it.
There you go. All right. So that, in fact, what you mentioned is part of what we're going to be doing today. The beginning of what we're doing today will be the things that you mentioned that you do. And then
Okay.
we're going to move forward from that. So that's kind of cool. Eleanor, you said you got some help with it. So anyway, there's a little bit of experience, but no one is like really comfy. Yoni, you mentioned you had used it. What have you used it for before?
Just to make like schedules and stuff, like work for work. But I've also used like math in it, I think. If you put like two numbers in it, it adds up. But that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So mostly that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, I like it because you both gave what you guys said kind of encompasses both of the sides, main things that we use Excel for. One is to do calculations. You know, you said math, calculations of all type, from just simple add this and subtract that to really complicated formulas that are like impossible to do without, you know, high level calculators. So it can do a ton of calculations. And the module 1 and 2 assignments, we're going to be working 90% of what we're going to be doing, or 100, almost 100%, is calculations of one sort of another. And module 1 is going to be a budget for a business. Okay. Now, budgeting for a business then will allow you to be able to budget for personal budgets, work budgets, project budgets, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the same kind of work. And then we're gonna use those just automatic kind of calculation things in module 1. And then in module 2, you'll begin to create your own formulas and functions for things that are a little bit more, a bit higher level, and not just count on the little button, the equal button that Holly was mentioning. But what we're not going to do a lot of is what Yoni mentioned. At first, she said she was doing scheduling, information data. We're not going to be using Excel so much for data. For data, we're going to be learning how to use Access, okay? But I'll also be teaching you how to work with Excel and data. And I'm going to be doing that on before we start, when we're done with, before we start Excel 2 and before we start Access, I'll be helping you learn a bit more about Excel as to how it manages data, because it is very typical that you would use Excel for that if you don't use Access. And a lot of people don't use Access for managing data, they use Excel. But the skills you learn in one are kind of transferred to the other. So it's kind of the spreadsheet word, data management part of it is going to kind of work the same. So what you learn in one transfers to the other. Okay. I have a message that I need to read. Okay. So Holly, send me an email about that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Okay. So Isaac, thanks for joining us. How are you doing? I was wanting to know if you've used Excel before.
No, I haven't.
Okay, cool. Well, there you go. You're joining a group of other people who haven't used before. All right. So now let me explain a little bit about Excel. Now, none of you has said enough about Excel to make me think that you might want to skip today's lecture. Usually, depending on what you say, I'll go, oh, I think you can kind of handle it on your own. You can all handle it on your own, reading the book and learning things. That's, you already saw the book kind of tells you press here, press there. But my goal is to teach you beyond press here, press there, is to give you a better idea of what's happening and why you're doing things. And so today I'm going to show you a few things in Excel beyond things that the book shows you to make it easier for you to work. And then next week, when I do the Excel lecture, I'm going to be teaching you stuff that you really won't understand in the book. So if do consider not missing next week's lecture, where there's going to be some juicy stuff. All right. So this is the assignment that you're going to have to do. You're going to create one Excel sheet with one Excel workbook. Let me explain, with 2 sheets. So that's the thing. Someone mentioned tabs down here, and this thing that looks like tabs, that's actually 2 different sheets within one file. So as opposed to Word, where if you have a new page, it's another page, it's the same as the first page, it's kind of a continuing page 2, page 3 of the same document. In Excel, you can have one workbook and it can have 10 sheets, 20 sheets, 40 sheets. So you could have maybe all of the business records for a company be in only just one file, right? Where you have different, expenses and budgets and estimates and actual costs and income and stuff like that. All of that can be in separate sheets of the same workbook. So an Excel file is called a workbook. It's possible that you have only one sheet in it, or you can have many sheets. And ours is going to have 2 sheets. One is going to be the actual numbers, data of what we've been spending. And the other one is going to be a chart. If you look at these numbers, it's very hard to easily tell which was the month I spent the most money, or what did I spend most of my money on. It's just a whole bunch of numbers. And so it's so easy in Excel to create a chart. Once you put in the data, the charts happen really easily. And it's much easier to look at this and go, oh, look at that. So most of my expenses went to, rent. And that was the second most was utilities and stuff like that, because it's just easier to read than to look at these numbers and try to look at each little thing underneath that to figure out where all the money went. Okay, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. But as you might see, there's a lot of formatting involved. And if you see an Excel sheet without formatting, it's just a bunch of nonsensical numbers on squares, and you can't understand what's happening. So formatting in Excel is very important. So we're going to be formatting as of module 1 to be able to understand that this is one thing, this is another. And so we're going to be creating tables with styles, just like we did in Word. These are styles that we're going to be using to create this format, and you won't have to be choosing, selecting to make this thing bold or selecting to make this thing green. I'm just going to apply styles, just like we did with Word, to make formatting much easier. Okay. So these are in general the things that we're going to be learning during module 1. We're going to be working with both text and numbers and creating formulas using the automatic formulas. Formulas are calculations in Excel. And then some are automatically created for us, and that's what we're going to be using for module 1. We're going to be copying information from a cell to another, applying cell styles, as I said, to give it all that formatting. And then we're going to create a pie chart. We're going to be working with different worksheet names and stuff like that. So first of all, I am going to have us go and download an assignment, or not an assignment, a file. Let me change my share. So now go ahead and go to the downloads assignments, and open up, you know, our class. Go to, when you get to home, from home, you can go here to where it says download class presentations. And then from download class presentations, we'll scroll down to this week's class right there. And this thing that says sample file Excel module 1, go ahead and click on this little icon and download that file so that we can open up Excel. And let me know if for chance it doesn't open or something like that. And once it downloads and you click on it, then Excel will open up. And here we go. This is the file that we're going to use to start working. I'm going to minimize this a bit. This is a bit smaller. There we go. All right, so did y'all find it? Were you able to download the project? Give me a yes if you downloaded it. Yep, Yoni downloaded it. Ashley and Eleanor. Holly, Isaac, Joanna, give me a yes, a little digital like.
Yep, I got
Ashley,
it.
just
Yep,
give me a yes. You got it,
Yep.
okay?
got it. Thank you.
Joanna, Isaac, let me know if you're set up. Cool. Another little thumbs up. All right. Well, just want to make sure you know where to find it, which is basically in this week 8 of the downloads files and recordings, and that's the one that we're going to be using. All right, so here we go. We've opened up an Excel sheet workbook, and this is an example of unformatted text. It looks pretty like hard to understand what's where. In particular, if you try to do a print preview of this, so watch, if I go ahead and say file, print, which is how we see a print preview, this sheet that's over here, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Oh, I guess I can't make it bigger inside of VDI. What would you think if this is a piece of paper that you receive? Is it easy to understand what's happening? I know it's kind of hard for you guys to see it.
No.
What's missing is that nice grid that you see, that you saw when you were working in Excel, the first cell, that grid is missing. So you go over here, it says San Francisco, Los Angeles, Philadelphia. So that's cut off. And then January is over here, and then there's our numbers, and then February's over here, and then there's the numbers, and like what belongs to what, right? Like this is kind of clear that maybe that's a row, but all of this is very hard to understand. So I'm gonna back off. And remember what I just did to do that preview is hit File, Print, as if I was going to print, but then I don't print, but that gives us a really good preview of the whole sheet and what it's gonna look like. And clearly that's not gonna be a good thing for it to look that way. So I'm backing off with that arrow and I'm coming back over here. And over here, what you're seeing marked as a grid, each one of these guys is a cell, and each one of these cells is going to have a set of data. And one thing about these cells is that, so go ahead and click around and you'll see that each time you click, you get a little highlight on that box. The important thing about Excel is that you can only have one set of data per cell. So you would never put, you know, 2 prices or 2 different words, or even 2 + 2 = 4 or something like that in one cell. You need to have your cells focused on them being just an individual piece of data. So say that you're going to put someone's address, you wouldn't put, you know, Mary Smith, and then in the first one, and then here you would maybe put, you know, 123 State Street, Santa Barbara, California. Nope, you'd have to put Mary Smith, 123 State Street, Santa Barbara, California, 93103. Phone number. You know what I mean? Like every cell has to have the individual bytes of data, and then this entire set, that entire row would be the data for Mary Smith. Okay, so in this case, this entire row is data for Los Angeles in the months of January, February, and March. So you can either click individually to select something, or you can click and drag to select more than one thing. So go ahead and try that. You can also click individually here, or you can click and drag to select more data at once. Now, click and drag your mouse while you're holding it down. One of the weird things when we do that is that we're accustomed to that if something is highlighted, then everything should be highlighted. But in Excel, when you highlight, the first box, the first cell of your highlight stays white, stays whatever color it's at. See that? So it's kind of confusing. People wonder why. And long story short, that's there because then through that you can see formatting. When we do more formatting, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But that does not mean that only these 3 cells are selected. All 4 of these cells are selected. What you need to look at is for this line around it, the green line around it, that is the actual area selected, even if you don't see it looking gray. Holly, you have a question?
Yes, so like with what we downloaded, that Excel spreadsheet, so we open up a new file and you want us to create this same spreadsheet? Is that
No,
what?
no. If you
No.
downloaded this file, then down here in the Chrome, when you download it, download it again, it shows up over here. You can open it up and it'll open up. It's those words and stuff that I'm showing you. That's the file that I asked you to download.
Okay, the practice. Okay, I think I downloaded the other one. It
It's
says
sample.
food services. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, wrong one.
It's sample file Excel module 1.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, you had the Excel functions practice. That's for next week.
Okay.
Or conditional formatting. You probably want one of those. Today we're using this one, sample file.
Thanks.
Good. No, I'm glad you asked. Now, oh, no, I've opened 2 of them. I'm gonna close mine. Okay. Now, have you all tried? Now, one thing that I haven't shown you yet is that you can select a whole row or a whole column, not just little bits and pieces. So here I'm selecting 3 columns, sorry, three cells in a row that span 3 columns, right? But I can also click and drag down like that and grab a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, here comes Matilda. Here we go. much over where we're at. You can also click and drag from down to up, bottom to top, left to right. So no matter which way you select, the first cell that you click on is the one that remains white. So now when I do like that, it's the bottom one that's white. And that's just because that's where I clicked on, okay? But the fact that it's white is meaningless. So now notice that when I click over here, a little bit of darker gray. So the column above this cell turns darker gray. And then the row that this cell is on turns darker gray. So this cell here makes the C and the 1 turn dark because do you guys ever play Battlefield? No, I'm not seeing many
Yes.
faces there. I played hours of Battlefield with my sister when I was growing up. I don't know, but it's that place where you sink ships depending on a grid. Anyway, this is the same thing. So this cell has a name, and the cell name is really, really important. Much more important than the data that's inside of it. Who cares that this day that much was spent or that this is San Francisco? What matters that this is A5 and this is C1. And another place to see this name is right up here in this name box. So if I click on this over here, I can see that that's D9. If I click over here, that's B10. So we always first mention the name of the column and then the number of the row. So this is A9 right there. And this is C4, okay? That's C11. Now you'll slowly begin to understand why, but these names that I'm giving these cells, we tend to call them the references. It's the cell reference. And the concept of cell reference is really important because what matters is not what's inside the cell. What matters is what cell it is when you start to make calculations. You don't add only 2080 plus 3874. What you really add is cell C11 plus cell D11, okay? And when you do it that way, then Excel becomes really powerful because you don't have to keep writing things. You just keep having a calculation here, a formula that says, please add this cell, and this cell together right there. And you get the results right there. And then you can put any numbers here and this result will always be correct. And that's why we don't refer to, don't add 2589 plus 2080 plus 384. What we do is we say, I'll add B11, C11, and D11. And then the result will be always correct no matter what number is in here. Does that make sense? And that's why here we reference those cells. So to first understand how to do that, you need to understand that these things, the reference and their names is truly what matters, okay? So what happens when I click in here, I see that that's D7. When I click in here, I see that that's B4. How about when I select this whole line? When I select the whole line over here, this still says that it's B10, which is the first one, that one that went white. It doesn't tell me that my selection is all three of them. This is actually something we call a range. And in Excel, a range is actually a whole range. This would be a range of numbers. And how we reference a range, because many times we need to reference a range, we say the range of B5 through D11. So B5 through D11. So we count this range as whatever is at the top left through to whatever is at the bottom right. So say that I would select like that, then that range is D5 through D12. If I select a range like that, this is B7 through C10. Does that make sense? We always, no matter if I'm doing it backwards like that, that's still what we call it. This is still range C6 through range D9, okay? How we write a range is going to be between, I think I can show you that in, over here. I'm going to switch back for a second to PowerPoint because I can't do that in Excel. So here is how you label a range. So if you select a range like that, then you call it H13 colon J15. And that means that you've selected this range right there versus an individual cell, which is just H13. Okay. Notice that the pointer in Excel is going to change shape a lot. Up until now, we've been using the pointer that looks like this big fat kind of cross. Sometimes it looks like a thin cross or like a line with two arrows. And then when we're entering data, it looks like a cursor or like 4 arrows. So all of these different shapes mean something different. So I'm going to go show you what they mean right now. Let me go ahead and head back into Excel. Oh, no, I'm showing you my Mac Excel. So let me switch to my VDI Excel. Which is no. Let me minimize my own Excel. Okay, so this is VDI. So those of you who wondered, there, that was Mac versus PC that looked very similar, right? Not identical, but very similar. All right. So notice that right now, when I am hovering, if I click on a cell, I've got the big fat X that I was fat, cross that I was telling you about. Look at what happens if I put my mouse over this cell and touch the edges of it right there and right there. See how it turns into 4-legged arrows? So go ahead and try it. Select something that has a number, put your mouse over it till it has an edge, and then click and drag. And what you've just done is we've moved a file, a cell with all of its data. So what used to be D5, now the data is in E5. I'm going to grab this again and move it over there. I'm going to grab it from the bottom and move it down. It doesn't matter where you grab it from at all. Okay, that you can move it. The only thing that you don't want to touch is this box right there. And I'll tell you about that box in a minute, the very bottom box. Right now, we're going to go ahead and put that right there again. And then what happens if I actually try to move this and put it down on top of something that already exists? See, this says 4583. I'm going to click and drag it and drop it right there. And then Excel is going to tell me, whoops, there's already data there. Do you want to replace it? So if I say, okay, then 4583 takes over and I've lost the other data. So be very careful because most of the times we don't want to do that. We don't want to lose data that's already there. Now there's nothing there and you've lost this data. So to undo my mistake, I highly recommend never fixing things. And in this case, we wouldn't even remember what that number was, so you can't fix it. So the best way to fix that would be to undo that bad action. So hold down the control key and then tap the letter Z for zebra, and that will undo that last action. So try that again. Go ahead and replace something else and say okay. And then control and then tap Z to undo that action. Now you can keep tacking Z. I'll make one change. I'll do that. Then I'll go ahead and move this over here. And since I'm going into a empty cell, nothing got replaced, then I'm going to grab this one and move it over here. So now I've just made 3 big changes, right? So if I want to undo those three, I'm going to hold down the control key and I'm going to tap one time the Z, another time the Z, and another time the Z, and I have undone three things. So now I've done 1, 2, 3, and I'm back at the beginning. So I've undone my last three actions by holding down the control key the whole time and then tapping the undo 3 times. If you're on a Mac, you need to hold down the command key instead of the control key. So that's the only big difference between the Mac and the PC, that on the PC, you hold down the control key. On the Mac, you control the command key. And then you tap the Z for zebra, 1, 2, 3, and undoes the last three things. If you tap it again, it undoes the fourth and the fifth and so on. Always in order of backwards, sequential backwards of what you just did. Did that work for everyone? The control Z, command Z. Now, I'll show you sometimes it doesn't work and I'll show you when it doesn't work. But first, let me move forward with it a little bit more and then I'll tell you when the command and control Z doesn't work. All right, so now let's go ahead and put our mouse down. Oh, first of all, down here, notice that it says sheet 1. We've been looking at sheet 1 this whole time. If we click on sheet 2, now you find the same data that was in the other sheet, but here it's been formatted. What a difference, right? It makes much more sense, or at least it's easier to watch, right? Matilda, do you know what file it is that we're using?
No, I'm gonna log in now.
Okay, so head over to in the Canvas course, head down to the downloads sheet that you find in the home page here.
Yes,
Head over here to download class recordings and class presentations,
okay,
and then scroll down to week 7.
okay,
Actually, week 8. And in week 8, under week 8, this is today's presentation, and then this is the sample file that we're using. So click on this thing and download it.
okay,
And then when you open it up, it'll
Thank
open up
you.
in Excel. You're welcome. So here we have an unformatted sheet and a formatted sheet, okay? But it's the same data. So you see how important formatting is in Excel to be able to make much more sense. Of course, there's something more here, which not only do we have the data, this stuff here is what we have in the other sheet. But on top of that, here we have a totals, then we have another totals, then we have some other calculations here, average, max, min, and some other things. The rest of this is all done with calculations. With Zoom, calculations are called formulas or functions, depending. So let's head back to, well, not head back, let's head down to where it says sheet 2. And let's actually make this sheet have a name that's much more functional. Let's call this one formatted. So how we do that, we head down here and double click on the word sheet 2 with the point of the arrow, and it gets highlighted. And now we're just going to call this one formatted. And hit return. You can also right click. Once you've hit return, you can right click that same tab and give it a color, maybe make it a pretty green or something like that. And then we can head back to sheet 1, double click sheet 1, and then call this one practice. And hit return. And this one, we can also, if you want, right click and give it a color, I don't know, brown. So then we go back and forth with our sheets having colors. Now, there's many more reasons to use sheets, but if you want a third sheet, or fourth or fifth or 20th sheet, you'll have to hit this little plus sign. So let's create sheet number 3. And notice that now, instead of seeing sheet number 3, it says sheet 1 again. Like, had we created a new sheet before we gave it names, it would have been called sheet 3. But since we gave these 2 names, now the new sheet is called sheet 1. And I can grab it and drag it over to make it the last sheet. or I can drag it and drop it here and make it the second sheet, or I can drag it over, make it the first sheet. So you can move sheets around all you want. And let's double click here and call it test and hit the return, and we're not going to give it anything. So now we can drag and move test to the middle. We can move practice to the back, et cetera, et cetera. So these can be moved in whatever order we prefer. Any questions about that? Nope. All right, let's head over to test, the one that has nothing on it. And we're gonna do some work inside of this test sheet. Remember that since I can't see your screens, I trust for you guys to stop me and, you know, ask me for help if you need help with something. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and click A1, select A1, and let's go ahead and write the number 10. So I'm just gonna type the number 10. I'm gonna make my bigger so you guys can see things a little bit better. So I'm just kind of dragging things over a little bit. Wow, it's not. So notice that where I wrote here a number 10, I haven't yet done anything other than write it. And do you see how I have a cursor blinking right next to my 0? That's because Excel doesn't know if I really meant to write 10 or 100 or 1,000. It's just kind of waiting. And so you're still in entering data mode. So the cursor is still blinking there. Another place that you see the 10 is up here. Notice that I have a little 10 up here as well in the numbers bar. Now this is called the formula bar. And you'll see soon why it's called the formula bar. Right now that 10 says 10 and the cell says 10. So it's all the same. Now, when you're done, if you're done writing this number and you want to move on to this number, you can do it in a few ways. One way that's maybe not efficient, but it works, is to just click on B1. So when you click on B1, what happened to the 10? It used to be way over on that end. And once you click on it, it aligned itself to the right, as opposed to a word that usually aligns itself to the left. Numbers align themselves to the right. On this one, let's go ahead and write 100. And then this time, to move over to this next one, instead of hitting with our mouse, let's go ahead and go to your keyboard and look for the tab key. And I'm going to hit the tab key. And so I've moved from here to here. Not only did that commit the number 100 to cell B1, but it also moved me over to cell C1. Now let's write 1,000 and then tab over to D1. Then let's write 10,000. Whoops. Let's write 10,000 and head over to E1. And the last one, 100,000. And let's move over. Okay, so go ahead and fill in those 3 cells. I'm going to zoom in a little bit better so that my sample is a bit easier to see. I use the zoom down here at the bottom, which is, you've seen that in Word as well, that there had this zoom feature down at the bottom right. I was able to zoom in or zoom out, okay, with these plus signs. This isn't making it any bigger. I haven't changed my font size. In fact, if I want to see my font size, just like in Word, it's up here in Century Gothic's 12 points. Okay, this is just zooming in so that I can make it bigger so you guys can see it better. All right, did everyone finish writing their numbers over there? Now, let's go ahead and head over to A2, which right now I got here by just clicking on this cell. And on this one, let's go ahead and write 20, how original of me, but this time, instead of writing tab, tab, tab to go to the right. Now I want to start going down. So say that I'm done with the number 20. So that this time I go down, what I need to hit is the return key. And then I can write 30, and then I can hit the return key and write 40, return key. And then 50. Okay. Someone. Texted me. Is that a student? Okay. All right. So did that work, hitting the return key to go down? Okay. So, oh, sorry. I keep moving my mouse with the bottom of my elbow. All right. So now, if I were to select this range, I would click and drag and move it down that way. If I were to select this range, I would move that way. Now, how about if I want to begin to do something with these numbers? First of all, the most typical thing that we do is try to understand what type of numbers we've been given. So if this is, this could be grades. Somebody got 10 points, somebody got 20 points, somebody got 50 points, you know, in which case we wouldn't, you know, need to know if it's in the thousands. But as we get over here to the left, this could be also dollars, or it could be gallons, or it could be so many units, right? It could be so many different things. And so depending on what it is, if it's 1,000 seconds, you would divide it differently into hours than if it were miles or stuff like that. So not only do we think about formatting in Excel as far as color and font size and stuff like that, we also think about it in formatting from the point of view of sorry, I just got a message about the fire getting much bigger. I hope no one's near the fire right now. Let me move it over to the side because that distracted me. The most important kind of formatting that we do in Excel is what type of numbers we're talking about. So if we click on this letter E over here, E1, the cell E1, right above it, I have two kinds of formatting. We have styles, which is identical to or very similar to what we did in Word with styles, where we apply many styles at once to it. But this is going to make it be akin to this formatted page, right? But then there's this other kind of styling where we give it either a dollar sign or the commas or things like that. So I'm going to go back to test. And that one we do down here under the word number. Okay. So here where it says number, if we select this cell and we click on the little dollar icon, then it turns into 100,000 with the dollar sign, and then we get .00 cents. Now notice though, that although visually we're seeing this whole dollar sign thing, up here in the formula bar, it still says the number 100,000. Like in the formula bar, all it cares about is the total. It doesn't matter if it's $1 or not. I'm going to click on this one. Let me give a hand here. Hi, Natalie. Nice to see you. I want to catch you up a little bit as to where we are. Everyone bear with me. We're working with Excel right now with a practice sheet. So if you have a minute, go over to the course. Okay. And when you get to the home page, click on download class presentations. And when you click on download class presentations, then you'll head over to this page, and then you can scroll down to week 8, which is the week we're in, right there. Week 8, Excel. And then this file here, sample file, Excel module 1, download that file and open that file. And that's the file we're working with, okay? I'm going to ask you guys how it's going, and if everybody needs anything in a minute, but right now I just want to make sure that everyone knows who's joining us knows what to open up. Matilde, did you find the file? Were you able to open it?
Yes, I'm in it right now. Thank you.
You're okay, great. All right, I'm heading back to Excel. Natalie, let me know if you can, if you're able to access the file, and if not, I can help you in another way. All right, so I'm back to Excel. And so did everyone give this E1 dollar formatting? Did you format it in dollar signs? Let's go ahead and head over here, and let's call this one percentage. And so that's a percentage. Let's go ahead and do C1. And in C1, all we care about is whether it has a comma or not to turn it into 1,000. Okay, so there's just different ways of formatting something. The number isn't the only thing that matters. Now, we can also turn it into green, blue, yellow, underlined, bigger font, smaller font. But this is formatting what type of number we're using. When you want to format things one at a time, you can do that, but it's kind of slow. Say that you want to format all of these numbers at the same time. You can select all of them and then make them all a dollar symbol. And then you get A through 5, they're all dollar symbols. But what if maybe this is a menu. I mean, in prices, you might see $12.99, $2.99, but in menus, usually things are, $2 or, I wish not much is $2, $22 or $14, right? So what if you want to get rid of the cents? Well, first of all, I want us to do something to this number. I want you guys to click in here, and for this number 20, we're going to change this. We're going to edit this, and we don't only want it to be 20, we want it to be 20.01. We're going to do $20 and not 01, 20.10, $20.10. We're also going to do another one to be $30.50, $40.70. So we're going to change the cents on this a little bit. So let's go ahead and click in here. And how do we edit this? There's two ways. One way is to just select this cell and then head over to the formula bar, which now says 20. Click in the formula bar, and then in that one you can write 0.10. And what you write in the formula bar gets reflected here in the cell. Does that make sense? I just use the formula bar to enter that information. When I'm done with that, I want to go down to the next one. So what should I hit to go down to this one here? Should I hit the tab, or should I hit return?
Return, enter.
Return or enter. And I head down to the second one. Yeah, thank you. Eleanor's on a silent basis today, because we discovered that when she turns on her sound, she makes me repeat myself, like I get an echo. Okay, so we head down to 30. So we could do that again, but the other way is to actually fix something inside of the cell itself. And to do that, I need to actually double click in the cell, right? And then I would move my mouse and click it outside, like I was over here. I can click it behind the 0. And then I could put a dot, let's say dot 50 cents for this one. And now another way to move around that I'm going to show you would be to use the arrow keys. So now we want to go to cell A4. So in your keyboard, oops, I'm moving my keyboard up and there's a lot of stuff on it, so I can't. So I ended up messing up. In your keyboard, you have arrows somewhere on your keyboard. I'm going to use those little arrows, not my mouse, but the arrows on my keyboard. So I'm going to head, I was in this one, and I'm going to go down arrow. I'm going to go up arrow, down arrow like that. And I'm just using my mouse, my arrows, or I'm going to go to the right or to the left. Okay. So you can use your arrow keys to move your way around, down and up and left. Okay. So now we're back on A4. And now whichever way you prefer, I'm going to add 4.70. And then we're going to leave 50 as is. So basically we have $20.10, $30.50, $40.70, and then 10 and 50. Okay, so does everyone change those? All right. So notice that if I click in here, I see $10. If I click in here, I see $20.01, $30.50, $40.07. See how it says 40.7 right there? And 50. Let's select all 4 of them or 5 of them. And now say that we actually don't want to show cents in this table for some reason, many reasons. We don't want to show cents, but we want the numbers to still be correct when we add them up. What we're going to do is we're going to go over here where it shows our decimal points. And if I go to this first arrow, I make even more decimal points. I'm going to click that one time and suddenly I have 3 decimal points, 4 decimal points. See that? For the selected area. But I didn't want that. I actually want to decrease them. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to get rid of the 2 extra decimal points. Then I'm going to get rid of that one more. And then watch what's going to happen. I'm going to get rid of the decimal point, even though there are some figures in there. And what's happened is that Excel has rounded up. My 10 remained at 10, my 50 remained to 40, and my 20 remained at 20 because it was nearer to 20 than it was to 21. Over here it says 20.1, but my 30 was at 30.5, so it flipped over to 31. So it rounds up to the nearest 5. It rounds up higher to the nearest 5. And here it also went up to 41. But if I look at the bar, the formula bar still says 30.5 or 40.7. You see that? So what's happening here is that this is simplifying your numbers to have a general number at the bottom that's simplified. But when we add these numbers up, Excel actually knows that these truly are 30.5 and 40.7. So when it does have to add these up, you'll get a very exact amount of the 10 cents plus 5 cents is going to be 6 cents plus 7 cents is going to make it jump over to the next number. Does that make sense? Yep. It just simplifies the number, but it doesn't lose the total. So you don't end up having like weird calculations. It just brings down the decimal points, but the formula bar has the real number. Okay. All right. Okay, so those are some basics about working with cells and doing a little bit of formatting. Now, the next thing I want us to notice is that all of these cells are the same size. See how they're all identical size? When we started, they're identical size. And yet over here, we have a really long number, and here we have a small number. and the dollar sign over here is right next to 100,000, but the dollar sign here is really far from the 10. So what's happening there? Well, one thing that's happening is that there's a difference between when you call something a dollar sign for accounting or a dollar sign for currency. So let me show you this. Over here, let's go ahead and write 200 down here. And then hit the return key and write 300, 400, and 500. Return key. So these guys, we had called them currency. We had called them accounting format by giving it a dollar sign, right? But now notice that although this one still says accounting, because we clicked on the dollar sign, these now say custom. Why are they custom? Because we started with a dollar sign and then we took the decimals out. So now they don't say dollar sign anymore. They say custom because we customized it. Does that make sense? But let's select this set here. And instead of calling it the dollar sign, let's go ahead and click over here where it says general. Click on this arrow and we're going to call this one currency. So this is accounting and this is currency, and both of us give us the dollar sign. I'm going to call this one currency. And the big difference, and this one still has the decimal points, which we can also take away if we want, right? To make it more even, we can take this decimal points out. But look at the difference is that the dollar sign sticks to the number here and here it doesn't. See that? So that's because when we're doing calculations, formulas that have to do with accounting, it's more complicated to see the dollar sign nearby. So the dollar sign sets itself apart so that the numbers are easier to read. But say that you were designing a menu and you're putting a price, it would be really weird to have the dollar sign over there and the 50 over here, right? And so for whenever you want to use this number as a price, for example, on a sales sheet or on a menu or on, you know, things like that, then you might want to have this assigned currency as opposed to accounting. All right. So anyway, that's a general example. You can also have up here, now I went and selected the C1. And as you can see, there's different things that I could do to format this information. You're going to be having to deal with some of this, and the book is going to show you a little about that. But right now, we'll just stick to just general, which is no specific number, and that's why we get the comma, the just 1,000 where we started with, or this one had been a comma where we got the sign without the dollar sign. All right, so that's formatting for you outside of colors and signs and things like that. One thing that I forgot to mention is that if you want to select everything instead of just, I'm going to zoom out a little bit more so you can see for a bit longer. Okay, instead of selecting just these four, if you want to change something, you can also select the entire line. Right now, if I select these four and I make them, for example, the text is going to be red. I'm going to click over there. Now the whole text changed into red. But when I click into F1 and I write something like the letter, you know, say I write 500 over here, it goes back to being in black. Oh, sorry, my mouse keeps jumping, it's driving me crazy. On the other hand, I can pre-format something. So I could have selected this whole line and made this whole line be red ahead of time, even if it's empty, right? So now when I go in here and I try to write 2000, it already comes out red because I had pre-formatted it, or 20,000. Okay. The last thing I want to show you is how you can select more than just a few things. You can select entire rows and entire columns. So if I want to select not just this, but the entire row to reformat it, I can just click on the number 1 and the entire row got selected all the way out. If I keep scrolling out till forever. In fact, if I keep going to the right, see how it goes H, K, L. I'm kind of moving down here to the right, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V. And I'm taking you here to notice that once you hit Z, it doesn't end. Then they start being called AA, AB, AC, AD, A. When you get to AZ, it'll be BA, BC, BD, and so on and so forth. So you can have like almost, it's limitless. It's a humongous number of columns that you can have. And it's an extraordinarily long number of rows as well. And every time I Google how many, it keeps changing over the years, they add more and more, but there's a humongous amount of rows and columns that are available. Now, if you want to select an entire row, you would click on the A and then the whole row. So maybe you would give the whole row a bold, for example, right? So I'm hitting bold to the entire row so that when I go write another number over here, or maybe the whole row, I'm going to call it bold, but also I'm going to call it all accounting number, and then I'm going to take away the 2 decimal points. So I've given it 3 different settings, and now I'm going to make it a different color. So I'm going to make it, blue. So now when I go write my next one, my next number in here, 60, it already comes out bold, blue, currency, missing the decimal points because I have already pre-formatted. If I write something over here, like 150, it's already set to be the same format as up there because I had pre-selected the entire row as much as here I pre-selected over here, I pre-selected the entire column and row. Does that make sense, you guys? All right. So a couple more things I want to show you that are pretty crucial. Let's go back. Any questions before I move on? So all of this is about the basic handling of yourself in the tab. Let's head down to the practice sheet. So Natalie, were you able to open the file perchance? Are you able to kind of follow along or not? I don't know if Natalie, you can hear me. Because over here, the one that you opened is only going to say sheet 1 and sheet 2. You won't have this down here. Let's head over to sheet 1. But it says sheet 1 for you is this here, January, February, March. Okay, so now let's figure a couple things out based on formatting that I just showed you. Clearly, and I'm going to show this again because quite a few of us joined after I had done this little sample, which is the reason that we need to do formatting, such as this one here, where things look much more much easier to understand, is because these gray lines don't print. Okay, so if I go and print this sheet, right, I'm going to go ahead and say file, print. I'm going to do a little print preview. Over here, this is what's going to print, and it's showing me, and it's showing me in black and white. I can ask Ashley to show them in color, but it's showing me what this is going to look like as a print. On the other hand, if I go over to practice and I go to file, print, this is what my unformatted sheet is going to look like, because the lines of my grids don't automatically print themselves unless I format them to have lines on the cells for them to print. So this is very hard to understand which one of these columns is January or February or March, and how come I'm missing out the names of my cities and stuff like that. So we're going to go work with this a little bit now to understand how to format things and how to make things fit correctly. All right, so first of all, let's head back one last time to test. I have one more thing to show you here before we move over and format that. Go ahead and get over here to under all these numbers where you don't have any numbers, and let's write the word happy. Oh, it's got this formatting that we just told it to have, but that's okay. Write the word happy, whatever formatting you get. And then notice that it's a word this time instead of a number. And when I hit return to write something underneath that, it stays on the left side. See how numbers always defaulted to going on the right side, but words, because they're text and we tend to read them left to right, they default to staying on the left side. Now let's write happy to meet you. And notice that happy to meet you is longer than one cell, but I still get to see it just fine. And let's say happy to meet you today. And once again, I can keep reading all my letters. Yeah. Now, this was all in column A, right? I wrote in column A, and if I click on the word happy, happy is an A9, and happy to meet you is an A10, and happy to meet you today is also an A11. If I actually want to write something in this column now, let's see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and in B9, I'm going to write the word hello, just because I feel like writing the word hello, and I write it like that. And now I'm in trouble here because B9 has some letters in it, but I'm going to go ahead and do what I've told you before, which is hit return to go and use the next cell. And now I'm going to write the word hello again. And what's happening is that once I write something else, this stuff gets truncated. Happy is there, happy to, and happy to are not there anymore. And that's because Excel was very happy to let the sentence use it as long as it was empty. But when it needs it, this cell truly was B11, and this one is A11, and it says happy to meet you today. See that? It still says that over there, but we can't read what it's saying because this is in the way. Okay, so when it needs to show up, it's not going to work. So I'm going to drag it down here, and since there's nothing here again, here it's happy to let it use it, but over here it didn't work. And remember how we dragged it, put the mouse over this area that has 4 arrows, and then you can drag it around. Okay, we did that at the beginning. All right, so now what do we do if I still want to read the whole happy to meet you and happy to meet you today, which is, you can see the cell still has it. It's just no place to use it, no place to, so I'm going to put this one back in here. So happy to meet you and happy to all need to be visible. So I can go up here with my mouse and I can put my mouse in between cell A and cell B, And see how it points down when I'm in A and down when I'm in B? It makes a little down arrow, but look at my mouse in the middle of them both. Turns into a line with 2 arrows. And now I can click and drag and I can make that cell wider. And so now the words start to appear and I can make it even wider until finally I read the whole thing. And so my cell is really long and skinny now, but I can see everything and it's not intruding upon the other one. I can make it even bigger, right? But if I make it any smaller, in fact, let's make it really small, it's going to intrude upon what I wrote, but the whole sentence is still there. I didn't lose it, okay? Now, there's a better way to resize a column. So what we're doing right now is calling resizing a column. And we resize these by hand. In fact, if you notice this one here, this column has a lot of empty space as well. This one has a lot of empty space as well. This one, on the other hand, is missing space. So if you want the computer to figure out what's the best size for the column, instead of clicking and dragging, you put your mouse here in the middle, and instead of clicking and dragging, you give it a little double click. Double click. And the computer automatically expanded it to make it as big as it needs to be. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to double click between B and C. And it made this one much smaller. See, it didn't need that much space for this one. Over this one, I'm going to double click between F and G, and it's going to make that one much smaller because I have more space. On the other hand, if I go over here and I keep adding numbers and I make this into a billion or something like that and give it space, it also expanded it to make me read the number because I needed more space. I didn't make it bigger. The computer just made it bigger for me to give me more space. But if by hand, I grabbed this one and made it smaller, look what happens. That means that little hashtags over there, that means, I'm sorry, but I don't have enough space to read your number. It doesn't mean something's wrong. It just means I don't have enough space. Text, it just truncates it. It just leaves happy, and I wouldn't even know that it says happy to meet you today. But if it's number, instead of showing me suddenly only 1,000, it says the number isn't fitting. So you need to double click in there and then it'll make it fit. And then the number appears again. But when you make it smaller and it can't show you the number, it just turns into hashtags. Okay. All right. Is anything here not working for anyone? Matilda, your video froze. I don't know if you're there, if your video is frozen or if your whole Zoom froze. I can only see, well, I see Eleanor, you're still moving. So I guess that people are on the other side. Joanna, thanks for raising a thumb. Since the only person I was seeing for a minute is frozen and Eleanor was still, I'm like, God, did I suddenly lose you all? No. Hey, thanks, Ashley. All right. So did you guys get this thing where you tried to by hand move it in a little bit and suddenly things don't fit and they turn into numbers? And if you double click, they fit themselves automatically, or if you make them too big, then it has too much space and then you double click. Okay. So these are all things you're going to be using. Let's head back to the practice file, and over here, now you understand what was happening to San Francisco and Los Angeles and Chicago. It's because we have a number over here and thus they got truncated. So how would we fix this? Well, it's kind of tricky because if I double click here to see San Francisco, it's going to get bigger. Why? Because travel expenses is even bigger. So really, if I double click right here, it's giving me more space than I need because it got as big as the biggest thing on the row, on the whole column, right? Had I said, let me see, San Miguel de Allende, which is an even longer name, and I double click, that's the longest one. So it's going to force itself to go to the longest thing on the column. So if I make it small by hand to fit San Francisco, that's going to still work because there's nothing in B1, and this still works because there's nothing in B12. But the moment I put a number in here, whatever number that might be, then that is going to get truncated. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to delete these two because I want to keep showing you stuff that you all have. Now, there's one more important thing that we haven't done yet, and this will be the last thing that we'll do, because everything I've just shown you is all stuff that you're going to have to do for the assignment. The last thing that we need to do for the assignment is calculations, some basic calculations. So we want to have an idea of how much, these are expenses, right? So how much was spent in January for all of the cities, in February for all of the cities, in March for all of the cities. So we need a total down here. And then we also want to see how much was spent this whole quarter in San Francisco, all 3 months, in LA 3 months, Philadelphia 3 months. Okay, so we want another total over here. So we're going to have to do a little bit of formatting, and then we're going to have to put some answers down here. First of all, there's a number missing here. Let's go ahead and type in here any number, 45, 67, I guess. Let's all put the same number, not any number, because I want us to have the same results when we're done. So I put 4567, 4567 in Atlanta, in January, Atlanta. And now under Boston, I'm going to write total. Total. And over here, I guess I could put total for city. I guess I could do that. And then over here, total per quarter. Right? So I'm going to have different totals. Let's go ahead and select this entire range from here to here. And this is just some basic formatting. Let's give it some grid lines. Okay, some grid lines so that we can see them printed. So by selecting from here to here, what we're going to do is we're going to be able to head over to, this does not exist in Word. It's a new thing under the formatting. You had bold, italics, underline, all of it was there before, but you did not have this one, which is borders. So click on this arrow right here next to borders, and let's choose all borders. All borders. So now what we've done is that we've given it little black lines so that if I were to try to print this now, even if January is not centered and February is not centered, you can at least now know what numbers go with what, just because of this little grid line that we just applied by giving it borders, okay? I'm gonna back off again. So that's all we did. We selected from A4 to E12. And once again, it's this little box over here. Go to the little arrow that's right next to it. And I chose all borders. So we just gave a thin line to all borders. There's much more formatting you can do, but that's the pretty basic. And then we're going to go ahead and pre-format this row here to be bold And we're gonna pre-format this row to be bold so that when we have a total here, it'll appear in bold. We're just gonna do some basic formatting right now. More importantly, I'm gonna teach you how to add up these numbers. So any questions before I move on to adding up? Anything with the formatting? Everything's okay? Yay, all right? Okay. Next week, we're gonna learn how to make these formulas ourselves, like how to create a formula for an operation that we want. But this time we're gonna let Excel use its automatic formulas that it already has. And the most used formula in all of Excel is always the addition. So there's just a simple button that will calculate things for us. But before we even get a result, I'm going to show you a kind of a neat way to have a preview of the result. I'm going to select all these numbers. If I want to know what the number is down there that adds up all these numbers, follow my mouse way down here. And notice that it's giving me three basic numbers here: an average, a count, and a sum. The sum is the sum of the selected cells. That is the addition. That is what the total is going to be. It's adding 7 numbers. There's 7 cities. And the average of what was spent was 4,100. That's the average of what was spent in January in all those cities. So those are just a quick count. And that just happened because I pre-selected this set. If I pre-select this set, you can see over here that adds up to 14,104, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't give me a total that I can register. It just helps me get quick gander. So let's get a total right here. Let's select the cell where we want the addition of all of that. So that's the first step, is we select the place where we want our result to appear. And then we'll take our mouse, and let me put my spotlight in red so you can see it a bit better. We'll take our mouse over here where it says auto sum, and it's as easy as just simply clicking on the auto sum button one time, and Excel is going to go, oh, is this what you want to add up? Do you want to add up the stuff that I've just highlighted? And if it's correct, it's the range B5 through B11. You go, yeah, that's what I want. And you just then hit the return or enter key. And when you hit the return or enter key, that right there gets added up. Whoops. And then over here, we're going to do it the other way around. We're going to first do it by first selecting our 3 things that we want to add up. And as long as there's a good spot right next to it, which there is an empty spot right next to it. If I had other things here, it wouldn't work. But since I have an empty spot right next to it, this time I first selected what I want to add up, and then I hit the auto sum, and then the number appears right next to it. Pretty cool. So those 3 are added up, and these 3 are added up. Now let me show you that when you click on this number here, you see the number. When you click on that number, you see the number. But when you click on this one, which is the result does not show you the numbers anymore. It shows you the formula. And that's why this is called the formula bar. It's showing you something weird, which is an equals and a sum and a range. We're going to learn all about formulas next week. We're going to be creating your own formulas. This here is the formula that means add up, please add up all the numbers in the range B5 through B11. And that's what happened. And this formula, if I click on this one here, I see that it's the formula saying, please add up everything between B5 and D5, which is B5 through D5, which is that range right there. And that's the total. And then the last thing you're going to have to do for today's assignment, and we're going to talk much more about this next week, but this is pretty crucial. Instead of having to do this again and again and again and again for each addition, what we're gonna do is we're going to select this formula and we're gonna drag it down. We're not dragging down the number 1400, 104, which by the way, let's give it a $sign and take out the numbers. That's not the number we're dragging down. What we're gonna be dragging down is the formula. And how we do that is we put our mouse on this teensy weensy little corner and see how I have a fat cross over here. And if I click on the edges, I get this little move cross. Look at what happens when I put my mouse on the actual corner. Let me get a little bit bigger so you guys can see this better. I'm gonna zoom in. I just want to have a little better. When I put my mouse on the little corner, there's like a teensy little X right there. When I hover right in that spot, my mouse goes from big fat cross to tiny thin little cross. I click and I drag down, and then my formula has copied down. And what the formula was, remember the formula was please add up anything that's in B5 through D5. So it added those three up. So now this one moved down one row and it's adding B6 through D6, which is these three. And this one is adding B7 through D7, which is these three. I'm going to spend much more time with this and explain it a little bit more in depth next class. But for now, just dragging down that little eensy weensy corner. Remember, you need to make sure about one thing. You need to make sure that you don't have the 4 arrows selected, because if you have the 4 arrows selected, let me just delete these for a second here so you can see what I mean. If you have the 4 arrows and instead of, you move down like that, then all you did is you moved down the 1404. So that's not what we want, not the 4 arrows. You need to actually wait until you get the tiny thin cross, and then you drag it down all the way down, and that is actually dragging the formula down. The last formula says, please add up B11 through D11, and that's the row 11, so it's adding these 3 up. Over here, we're going to do the same with this one. We want January, February, and March to be added up. And this formula here says add up B5 through B11, which is B5 through B11. So I'm going to put my mouse right here, wait until I find the little plus sign that's thin, and I'm going to drag it all the way out. And in fact, I'm going to drag it one more because that'll give us the absolute total. And I'm going to also make this have $sign, bring down the decimal points. And there you go. This is my absolute grand total of what I spent. And I just gave it that little color. I could have my totals over here have a light green, and these have a light blue, or something like that. And then that's how you're getting an idea of these numbers. And then this data can have a light yellow. Okay, so that's the very basics of formatting and adding things up. The other only thing that you're going to have to do is that when you use styles, if you select instead of doing colors like we just did over here, if you create a style, you'll format things. So I'm going to select this total down here. And instead of selecting these individual styles, I'm going to go over here to cell styles. And I'm going to choose, for example, a totals style right there. And that turned into 2 little lines. Well, I guess that one wasn't very different from what I did. It gave me a styling. Okay. So there's different cell styles that we're going to be using over here. It's a bit different in that it looks, it just kind of shows you. If I hover over this, it's going to make it green. If I hover over this, it's going to give me 60% accent, accent 5, stuff like that. So let's say that I get travel expenses is going to have accent 5. And first quarter here, Excel styles is gonna be title, style, etc. Okay. All right. So, any questions? I know that a lot of this is stuff that, the formula part, we're gonna actually go much more in depth next week, but this is really all you need to know for this assignment. Any questions? Nothing there?
I lost my camera, but I'm here. I don't have no questions. I've been following along.
Yeah, I saw you were frozen there for a while, so I
I
guess.
know, I don't know if this is the computer or what, but yeah, I've been
It-
trying to fix it.
Mhm. Yeah, it could be that it's slow Zoom, slow Wi-Fi or something happening, or the fire might be affecting the system. I don't know. Are you in Santa Barbara? Because we're
No.
having a nasty fire that's encroaching upon us right now.
Yeah,
Not good.
I'm near the fire and I think it's affecting my internet right now.
Yeah. So Natalie, I kind of, since you showed up in the middle of the explanation, I'll help you catch up with anything you need.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Mhm.
I was gonna ask you about the concepts exam. I've been trying to take it, but it's still
Yeah.
unavailable for me.
Yeah, I wasn't able to reset it yet. I need to talk to
Oh.
Cengage because since that's why I didn't get back to you.
Okay.
So give me a second until I'll ask if people have any more questions about what I explained, and then we can talk about, because I'm gonna do, I did talk to them today and they told me something I could do, and if I can do, I can reset it right now. That way you can go ahead and
Okay.
take it, but hang on for
Yeah,
a
no
minute.
worries. Thank
So
you.
you guys, anything else you guys need or questions that you have or help you need with assignments? If not, then you're welcome to leave and have some fun with Excel Module 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, guys. All right, so I'm gonna stop this share and I'm gonna go and I had reset your exam, but it wasn't, let me actually stop the recording because this doesn't need to be in the recording anymore. There we go.